With many digital companies, when you start to talk about starting new projects, you start hearing terminology like design or about templates and things like that. So with Spring Insight, we very much are a strategy first company. I wanted to talk to you about what that looks like, what that means, and why we think that's so important for the way that we do business. So at Spring Insight, we're going to spend a lot of time in the beginning part of the project developing strategic documents, whether it's looking at keywords or generative AI optimization questions that represent to you, or really just understanding and creating process flows for your prospective clients. We really want to understand your organization and understand how people are going to be flowing through the website that you're building. So why do we do that? What is the problem with being design first? Well, design first, meaning you sort of go very early on to design, is you're ending up creating something for all. You're creating a website that is going to be much more general to an industry as opposed to specific for an organization. One of the things that I like to say is that creating for all really means creating well for none. Generic language and images end up creeping in. Everything looks and sounds the same. And real expertise, what you really are trying to communicate, it ends up getting flattened. It isn't really about bad design. The design might actually be very good. It's really about missing context, about missing the pieces about an organization that make that organization special and unique. So let's talk about how we work and how we're different from sort of a design first agency. I talked a little bit already about some of the documentation that we create that really does differentiate the way that we approach the work. But in general, I also like to think of it as being just a very different way of approaching an understanding of a client. We don't work with government contractors, right? We work with organizations that work with the government but are selling very specialized expertise, such as perhaps complex cybersecurity. Or we don't work with CPAs. They're not selling just accounting. They are experts in a specific domain like nonprofit accounting, or they do advisory work for organizations that are in manufacturing. For the organizations that we tend to work with, they are selling very specialized knowledge, and that website, it has to pull its weight in terms of promoting an understanding of that specialized knowledge. Strategy is one of those overused words. You hear it everywhere. So let's talk about when I say strategy, when I'm talking about what we offer, what exactly does strategy mean? Strategy is how we surface and we clarify the experience that our clients bring. So who exactly is this expertise meant for? Who is going to profit from it the most? What problems does this expertise solve? What questions are prospects really asking? So the way we think about it is strategy, it's not about documentation. It's not about just sort of doing this. It's about alignment. It's about making sure that what we build matches exactly who that organization is and what they do to serve their clients. And this changes the website. A website that is created with a strategy first approach is going to be clearer in terms of the content, in terms of really understanding where it's going from the beginning. So those content decisions are easier. The same is true for design choices. They feel intentional because you have set that strategy. And so the design just seems to follow that. You're not making it up as you go along. That matters. This idea matters, the strategy first idea. It matters always. In a generative AI optimized world, it matters even more because AI rewards clarity and specificity. Who are you the perfect answer for, and what are you able to answer better than absolutely anyone else? So strategy first sites are easier to structure and are easier to trust because they're very understood and they're very clear as to what that specific strategy is being offered, and an AI agent is going to know and be able to trust, having looked and seen this much more specific expertise, what that organization is the expert and the answer to in terms of the questions that they might get. Our clients really are always surprised by this process. There are a number of things that surprise them because working from a strategy first perspective is a bit different than perhaps websites they've done in the past. So what are the things things that they are surprised by? I think the biggest thing that we have found that they're always surprised by is how much they learn about their own company during the process. Why is that? Because so rarely, as a small business owner myself, I know how difficult it is to really look above the organization to make these kinds of decisions and to really think at that 1,500-foot level at the organization. Working on a strategy first website really forces you to do that. They're also surprised about how collaborative the process feels, how smooth everything goes along in terms of the content, because we have worked so hard initially on that strategy. One of the pain points that we hear from organizations about, oh gosh, this process, it takes so long for us to actually start to see the website develop. The takeaway that I want to leave with you is that it's not about slowing down the projects. It's about actually making sure that you're intentional in the early parts about how you're spending your time so that later on the project can go much more quickly than it would if you were getting hung up on, well, this doesn't quite fit. This isn't exactly how we sound. It's really how you protect your expert organization, the thought leadership that you've developed, and make sure that that's reflected in the site that you eventually create. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. If you enjoyed the topic, I hope that you will like it. I hope you'll subscribe. I'd love to talk to you about your website. If you'd like to, please go to our website, springinsight, springinsight.com, and sign up for a consultation. I look forward to chatting with you.